Did you know you can rewire your nervous system to heal your body and mind? I'm Ashley DiLello, mind coach and creator of bioemotional healing, a process based in neuroscience to rewire the nervous system out of stress and create mind-body freedom. Join me on this podcast as I show you how to harness the brain's incredible power to set you free. All right, welcome back everyone to the Bioemotional Healing Podcast. I cannot tell you, I've been geeking out on Dr. Peter Martone's information, and I'm so excited for this interview. So excited to bring it to you. We are definitely of like mind in terms of the brain and the nervous system and how they influence everything in the body, but he has this wealth of knowledge that approaches it from an even different place, but similar with me. And so let's dive in. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Ashley. It's such an honor to be able to be in the presence of an individual that's making some change. I tell you, having a podcast and having a consistent message that you want to share with the world, I love it. And I just respect the whole podcast community. So thank you so much for helping me get this message out, and hopefully people can take the information we have tonight and apply it to their, to their sleep patterns tonight and make some real transformational change, because health starts in the bed as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and I mean, that's where we spend most of our life, right? I mean, a great majority of our life.
It is. And the other half of our life is on a cell phone.
That's right.
Straight down or at a computer. So
right.
So you gotta reverse that damaging effect somehow.
And I want to talk about that, because I know that is what you speak on, is utilizing sleep to help reverse the damage of our forward posture dominant lifestyle today, right? So I want to dive into that, and of course how to sleep, because 50 to 70 million plus Americans have sleep disorders. I've definitely been one of them. It's been one of the greatest journeys of my life to learn how to sleep. But before we dive into all of that, I know, speaking from myself and everyone else that I do speak to, when you're on a mission and a purpose, it's usually rooted in something personal, right? That therefore leads you to advocate for this in a particular way. So before we dive into all these other aspects, what brought you into this specific aspect of your work?
Yeah, so, life leaves breadcrumbs. And if you're not, history leaves breadcrumbs. And if you're not conscious about them, a lot of times life will just pass you by, and then down the road you end up somewhere. But things with me, I can remember when I was 6 years old. 6 years old, I grew up in Malden, Massachusetts. And when my mother told me to go to bed, the window of my bed was on the front porch of my house in a busy street. There was a bus stop there, and all I can remember is that I was afraid that somebody would smash through my window and was going to, kidnap me. So in order for me to be able to get to sleep, I had to curl up in a ball, right, to feel protected, and put pillows over me, create this cocoon, put all my stuffed animals around me, and I had a crucifix on my wall, and I had to face God, because I would pray to God that wasn't the night that I was going to get kidnapped.
Oh.
And, you think about that, that emotional turmoil that I had, but, so falling asleep for me was basically I wanted to feel protected, and that's the only way that I was able to fall asleep. And what we find when I've worked with thousands of people that have sleep issues, people tend to fall asleep in a position that is not correct for them, but in a correct position they feel safe, and that's curled up on their side in a ball. Well, your spine is like clay. It can be molded. And over a period of time, years and years, years after years, sleeping in this curled up position, later on down the road, I ended up having shoulder issues. I had hip issues. My neck would go out on me. My back would go out on me. And I always had attributed it to being like a high intense athlete, right? I'm mountain biking tonight. I mountain bike on a regular basis. And even as a chiropractor going into chiropractic school with back pain, in the first 15 years of my practice, always having back pain, even getting adjusted, I'm like, how? And then finally my disc herniated. I herniated my lumbar disc, and my leg was numb. I'm in the emergency room. I'm hooked up on Dilaudid, and I said, how could it get to this? I've been working 15 years of my practice on patients, helping them with back pain. I've had back pain my entire life. I have a shoulder issue. I'm always in pain. There's got to be something. I'm too young for this. So then I reviewed 3,000 x-rays. I came up with a pattern and said, holy mackerel, could it be my sleeping position is causing all of these problems? And then I started to work on positioning. Next thing you know, I presented to a friend of mine, Dr. Joe Mercola, and he's like, holy mackerel, that makes sense. He's like, you gotta come up with something. So I came up with this whole platform of teaching people how to sleep, not just to be able to get a restful night's sleep, but to be able to help them restructure their get themselves out of pain and all of these things. So that is how now a chiropractor for 24 years is now in the sleep industry. I didn't get into the sleep industry to help people sleep. I got into the sleep industry to help people fix their structure while they sleep. So a little different.
Amazing. That's why I love the different perspective on it, because let's say someone is getting enough sleep each night, but they're like, why do I feel like I'm not recovering? Why do I not feel energized in the morning? Why am I still hurting? And there is a sense of powerlessness because we go to sleep and then we kind of aren't in control of what is happening, and then waking up with these aches and pains. Or like in your instance, maybe I'm doing all the things, I'm exercising, I'm doing physical therapy, I'm seeing a chiropractor, I'm doing an ice bath, like I'm doing all these modalities that are supposed to help me get out of pain, and yet I still have pain, right? And to your point, being young and saying, well then, why and how do I fix this, can feel really powerless and honestly sometimes exhausting with the amount of efforts to get out of pain to therefore still have it, right?
Yeah, think about being a chiropractor. You're paid to get people out of pain, but yet you always have pain. It wasn't a good feeling on that emergency room bed, sitting there like, oh my God, how did it get to this?
Yeah, I've certainly had those moments myself. So, but those become the catalyst, right? To figuring it out for yourself and therefore hoping to figure it out for other people. So let's talk about first, because I know you created this sleeping protocol and now you have a pillow, which we're going to talk about as well. But I know you have 3 laws you talk about that you based your sleeping protocol on. So let's talk about that.
Well, we're going to add a 4th law in just because you and I had talked about it right beforehand. Awesome. And in order to, so a law is something that it's an anchor, right? It's something that you can't deny. It's how the body works. It's like gravity. You drop a ball, it's going to fall. That's law. So once you come from law, you can't argue anything against it because that's how the body works. So the first thing that we spoke about, which I think is super important, which is the appreciation of being a chiropractor has given me such an understanding of, and I did a whole philosophical training and education on this, is what controls everything in the body. Well, it's the brain. Mm-hmm. The brain controls everything in the body, and it does so through the nervous system. So how important is it that nervous system functions optimally for now and for the rest of your life? It's extremely important. And then the structure affects the function of the nervous system. You see, the nervous system is housed within the spinal cord. Within the vertebra. So the spine protects the central nervous system. Now, if the spine's out of alignment, it just seems plausible that there could be pressure on this nerve versus this nerve, which the structure itself affects the function of the central nervous system. So when you look at the spine is like a fuse panel, where every level of the spine is mapped. If somebody has breathing issues, they're going to have an issue with the upper portion of their back. If somebody has an issue with reflux, they're going to have an issue with the mid portion of their back. If somebody has headaches or hormonal issues, they're going to have a problem here and here. So everything is mapped through the spine. So that is law number one, that the nervous system controls everything in the human body. So we want to do everything we can to protect the integrity of the nervous system. I mean, the integrity of the spine. So when people say, oh, sleeping on your side, like me and Dr. Gundry had a great conversation. He's like, well, sleeping on your side definitely helps less stress on the heart. I'm like, yeah, with all due respect, there's 5% more pressure on the heart than on your back. But in general, when you sleep, there's all of the pressure significant. That's even way less. So when you're sleeping, it drops to a much lower level than when you're awake. So the pressure is negligible, right? On the stress on the heart is negligible. So we can't use that as the anchor. The anchor needs to be to protect the nervous system, because you destroy the structure of the spine when you're on your side. Anyway, sorry. That was an aside. Oh my God. So here we go.
It's okay. I get it. It's passion. It leads you in directions. I'm very similar, so we're all good here.
All right. Number 2, Davis's law. Davis's law states that tissue will remold based on the stresses applied. Wolff's law, bone will remold based on the stresses applied to it. And then the righting reflex. The righting reflex is critical because that says that your body posture adjusts to head position. So which means when you have a hip that's out of alignment, when you have a short leg, when your leg discrepancy is pointed out, or your shoulder's out of alignment, that's all coming from the way that you're holding your head. And that's all comes from the vestibular system. So if we sleep in positions that destroy the structure of our cervical curve, when you lose the structure of your neck, right? So when you're on a cell phone and you're texting and we're doing all of this forward head posture and you're curled up and you're sleeping in a ball, what ends up happening is you lose the structure of this curve. And because it's changing the position of the head, the body does this to compensate. So I ended up with the lower back issue and a disc herniation, not because I had a back problem, but because I had forward head posture, or I lost my cervical curve due to the way I was sleeping. So those are the laws. Sorry. So I know I totally went on a super tangent, but I thought it was important to point out the nervous system.
Well, absolutely. I always say that with everything that I talk about, it's like we're treating, I always tell my clients, it's like your alarm system going off in your house, right? The smoke detectors, which we've all experienced, and it's usually the middle of the night, but nonetheless, it's like it's going out. We keep changing the batteries, but there's a fire that's happening that we're ignoring. And I always equate that to, that's the nervous system. The nervous system is the fire, and it's manifesting in all these symptoms that we're treating, but the fire itself is still going, right? And you're talking about that in terms of our spine and the structure and the loss. Is that mostly due to the loss in the cervical spine that therefore then impacts the rest of the spine?
Correct.
Okay, so we are designed, you're telling us, and you're going to tell me, and you're going to tell me us why, to sleep on our back. And here's really interesting. Through my whole chronic pain journey and my health surgeries, I had to sleep on my back because that was the only comfortable position. And my neck, I had to be on my back because any side sleeping, which would cause my neck to curve to that side, was unbelievably painful. So for many years, I felt like a mummy, I'm not gonna lie, a little bit. I had to sleep on my back, but I still wasn't per se getting restful sleep because I had all these other issues and chronic pain. But fast forward, now that I'm not in that type of pain, I wanna sleep on my right side. And I really want to. And it's a challenge, and I think my pillow is contributing to that. But tell me and us why we are designed for our spinal structure to sleep on our back.
All right, so you personally, looking at you, you have a vagus nerve issue on your right side. So your vagus nerve is being compressed due to the way that you hold your neck. More than likely you've sprained your right ankle. So your right ankle's been sprained, which is causing atlas laterality to your right side, which is preventing you from being able to rotate your head to the left side. So if you turn your head,
Yeah.
you can't turn your head as far to the left as you can the right.
See, look
Okay,
at
so
that.
you're going to have restriction. So you can feel, you can see.
Yeah.
So I can see that just looking at you through a screen.
Yeah.
So if I can see that by just looking at you through a screen, there has to be something there has to be like something I'm picking up on. And there is, because your structure is pushed in on the right side of you. I don't want to, I'm kind of busting you out right now.
No, this is good. I danced a long time in my career with strained ligaments on my right ankle.
Yeah, and you're going to have a tendency because you're going to lean to that side because of of a balance issue that's going on in what's called the vermis in your brain. So when you sleep in a specific position, let's say I want my arm to bend, I would take my arm, I'd hold it bent. And after about 4 years, I'll have a bent arm. After a year, I'll have a bent arm because the tissue will remold based on those stresses. The curves of your spine, the way the spine's made, this is looking at it from the side. We should have curves here. When you look straight on, it should be straight. So when we sleep on our sides, we're putting lateral stresses into our body, which is not sustainable. So when you put yourself into a position, let's say it's a side sleeping position, I tell my patients, try to watch a 2-hour movie like that and don't turn. You can't do it because it's not a sustainable position, because the body is going to be in pain because you're putting stresses across the planes of the joint, which is not natural. So sides of faces, you can see sides of faces pushed in. You can see maxillary sinus issues. People will get TMJs issues. They'll get headaches. They get shoulder problems because you're putting stresses across the planes of these joints. In retrospect, if you sleep on your back or you lie on your back, and this is a very exposed position, I couldn't do it because you don't feel protected when you did this. So there's a whole way to get somebody to you don't have to be a back sleep your entire night, but you want to start on your back, but you need to create a safe space. So if you sleep in a position where this spine, all of the curves of the spine, you're basically just keeping you put the body into an aligned position, then when you fall asleep, you can stay that way and the body won't toss and turn. And then what you will do, because that is a really good mold, you'll start to reverse the damaging effect of being on a computer all day long.
And I love that you approach it from that standpoint, because so many people are like, well, what am I supposed to do? This is my job, right? I'm on a computer all day. And we can, and I certainly have tried to vary my position, right? So standing or sitting. I have my computer up at an eye level so I'm not looking down all the time, and I'm aware of where I'm typing so I'm not hiking my shoulders into my neck. But there's also no getting away the fact for many people that that's what they do. We can't get away from our phones per se. We can't always lay down and have our phones up above us, which I've tried. And one time I dropped my phone on my face, and they're heavy, man. It was not a good thing. So that's what I also love about this is let's mold the tissue. Let's remold the structure while you're sleeping, right? So we get a benefit of rest while we're sleeping, while we're doing something for this long, many hours. And I love that you said, because that fetal position, right, is a sense of safety. And so for you, obviously you had like a real physical danger threat that you perceived, right, of going to bed at night. I myself spent many years being afraid to die while I was asleep because I was so sick. And so my nervous system for many years had a huge threat response around sleep. And I had to go through, and that's a big part of my work with bioemotional healing, dive deep and heal the impact of that trauma to where even I felt safe to sleep at all. Because that got even reaffirmed when I got into chronic pain, because chronic pain loves the night when you are trying to lay still. And that's when the nerves love to tell you what they're thinking and feeling. So getting to that place of safety, you said there is a way to do that. So aside from like the deeper work and rewiring that I do, how does someone start to feel safe to sleep on their back, right? Let's say they are someone with different circumstances, but similar to you and I, where there's been a long-standing wiring of that fetal position of safety and going to bed. And now it's also a habit, right? And it feels comfortable because that's what the body's molded to. How do people start to make that transition to their back?
So people will toss and turn for 3 reasons. First, they're in pain. Second, because their core temperature is too hot. Airway management, and then safety. They don't feel safe. Whether it's a perceived safe, I love that term, perceived versus not perceived. Doesn't matter whether you're running from a tiger or your body thinks you're running from a tiger. There's the same neurological effect internally. That's a great point. So, anxiety or anxiousness or a sense of protection is like survival, right? That's what you've probably taught your clients or followers, that it's a sense of survival. Well, in retrospect, or the contrary nervous system to survive is thrive, right? So you have survive, and then you have thrive. You can't really survive and thrive at the same time, right? They're kind of two opposite nervous systems. So a cell can't be in defense and growth at the same time. So there are 3 systems that are within our thrive systems, and people typically are going to have problems in all 3 of these systems: immune system, digestive system, and reproductive system. So those areas, those systems are all in that thrive system. So in order to feel safe, you need to stimulate the parasympathetic system. So you can do that a few different ways. You can do it by using pressure over your eyes. So just like an ostrich sticking its head in the ground to feel safe and protected, most people curl up in a ball to feel safe and protected. So what you can do is you can use pressure over your eyes, right? So I use a sleep mask, right? Simple. Just put a sleep mask over your eyes. What we find is just using pressure against your eyes can improve your heart rate variability, which is a measure of how sympathetic or parasympathetic dominant you are. But they can improve your heart rate variability by 15 to 25% at night when you sleep, just using an eye mask. Wow. So that's one way. And then also locking your doors is another way, right? Just to create that safe environment, using pressure on your chest, like a weighted blanket or a pillow. So what we find and we use with our clients is pressure. Use pressure on your chest, pressure over your eyes. I mean, there are different techniques we teach in our courses where you can actually, I don't know if you noticed, but right before we did this podcast, I took lavender. You can use any scent, and I put it underneath my nose. Well, why did I do that? Well, when you do a podcast or you're speaking, a lot of times you tend to be a little bit more sympathetic dominant. But I meditate and I calm down with that scent. So I learned to lower my heart rate due to doing some biofeedback techniques. And now anytime my brain smells lavender, it connects me to a lower heart rate. So I can be calmer and be more present during a podcast. So those are different things and techniques that you can do.
I love something that you just said that I always tell my clients. You can create such beautiful positive triggers for your brain. And that's what you just said, right? The lavender now, because the more you've done it and the brain learns, the quicker the brain cross-references to bring you to that calm and focused state. Because I think we talk about the brain so much in the ways in which it hurts us and the negative triggers, and we can absolutely utilize it to create these positive triggers. And I'm sure even the more you use the sleep mask, right? I tell my clients to put their legs up on the wall for 5 minutes before getting into bed, right? To help activate their parasympathetic. Is the faster it happens, the more you do it, right? Because the brain loves consistency. Again, it learns, same as our spine learns. So that's really interesting. I didn't know that about ostriches. And then that's why they do that. That's fascinating. To me, it's incredible. And I know we won't diverge into that, but there's so many observations of animals that teach us how to manage our nervous system, right? Because their brains aren't as complex as ours and get in the way of how to actually calm down and activate that parasympathetic. Let's go back, and I want to talk more about the heart rate variability, because I think people are becoming more and more exposed to sympathetic nervous system, right? Fight or flight. And there's a lot of words being sympathetic dominant, right? There's a lot more understanding of that verbiage. But let's talk about heart rate variability when we sleep, right? And why that matters in terms of if while we're sleeping, our system is more in parasympathetic or sympathetic.
All right, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to grab one of my favorite little charts I use.
Love it.
Do you know what that is?
Is that our... Oh, go ahead.
That is the representation of the vagus nerve.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. The vagus.
Beautiful. Woo, woo.
The amazing vagus.
Right? So the vagus nerve is, roughly, arguably 80% of the entire parasympathetic nervous system. So it represents about 80% of your entire thrive nervous system. So one of the very interesting things about the vagus nerve is forward head posture affects the integrity of the vagus nerve and the way that it functions. So just by the loss of structure of the cervical curve due to that forward head posture. So when I look at you, you have a straight curve and your head leans. I know that you have vagus nerve disruption. So you have vagus nerve disruption due to the structure of your curve. So if you have that in itself, and then we can put you into a position over a period of time using the head as like a weight and like a slinky, right? Using distraction versus support. Because anytime you support something in the body, you make the body weaker, whatever you're supporting. So support sucks. I hate support. Sorry. But
I love that.
So when we use pillow, a pillow defined as a support for your head. Whenever you support something, you're going to break down the structure of the spine. So when you sleep into a position and you disrupt the structure of the curve. So for instance, this is a normal cervical curve. When you lose that cervical curve, you're affecting the structure of the vagus nerve, and you're causing not sympathetic dominance, you're causing parasympathetic inhibition, which give you a sympathetic dominance. So what you'll see is most people will be like, oh, I do all this stuff. I meditate, and I just can't shut down my adrenal glands. I'm always adrenally stimulated. Well, you're always adrenally stimulated because you're parasympathetic inhibited due to that forward head posture. So when we put you into a position that makes you feel safe, that stimulates vagus nerve, that cools your body core temperature, that gets you into deep sleep, and then we put something underneath your neck, but we use the weight of the head off of the back of it so that it's distracting your neck while you sleep, which is gently stretching the curve back into your neck. You're stimulating that parasympathetic function, and you're actually improving your health when you wake up the next morning by just changing the way that you're sleeping. Now, it takes time to be able to get there, but by increasing parasympathetic tone, you take something that's called heart rate variability, which is a balance between how sympathetic dominant you are or how parasympathetic dominant. They want you in balance. Most people's scales are tipped this way. They're mostly sympathetic dominant, which gives you low scores on heart rate variability. As you start to balance the scales, your HRV readings get better. And if you can tip the scale this way at night and you get really high variable readings, which tells you you're parasympathetic dominant while you're sleeping, you're getting more healing, more thrive, you wake up more well rested, and you'll be ready for the day.
Amazing. So it's not just all the years of not sleeping well, but it's sleeping in a position that's inhibiting our parasympathetic. And it's not just that, right? It's our day-to-day activities that are, of course, also maybe inhibiting aside from the world, social media, the impact on our dopamine and serotonin and all the receptors with being addicted to, or just attached to our phones, would you say then one of the strongest links of maybe why also we have such an upswing, not only maybe in our autoimmune, but also our mental and emotional health, is because this forward head posture is inhibiting our parasympathetic nervous system?
I love being a chiropractor, but once I found out all of this information, I had to get out there and tell the world about it, because you just hit the nail on the head. Where my personal story really kind of came in, and I've shared this with my whole group, is I had a lot of stuff up in my own brain, right? And as we all do, I have ADD. I'm cross dominant. Executive functioning issues. They said that I wasn't the smartest kid in school, and you won't make anything of himself. All that kind of stuff. And then when as kind of life goes through, and you're running on this high intense, this high sympathetic tone, you're addicted to adrenaline, you're addicted to you have addictive personality, and there's going to be a crash, right? There's going to be at some point in your life where you're going to that high and you're suppressing all the lows, but there's going to be a point where your body is just going to crash. And that is, in a sense, what happened to me. So when I was down into that state, this was before I was kind of into the sleep world, and this is where all my understanding of neurology, where really I dove in, is that in order to have, what is an addictive personality? An addictive personality is just a brain that requires more spin than another brain. It just requires more focused attention. It requires more energy. It requires more going on. So you'll see people that have overflow movements, or they'll they'll get jittery. That's a brain that's trying to stimulate itself to focus. So one of the issues is that it's trying to focus into the prefrontal cortex, right? So one of the portions of the brain that develops the prefrontal cortex is the vermis, which is in the cerebellum. The way to develop the vermis is through proprioception, through movement. When you lose the structure of the cervical spine, like a dam, you dam all of the proprioceptive signals, or a lot of the proprioceptive signals going up into the vermis, and you're creating a depressive state just due to the structure. So yes, it affects the vagus nerve function, but it also atrophies the vermis when you have lack of cervical curve. So once I started to work on balance to stimulate the vermis, and then once the curve improved in my neck, your brain starts to spin faster just by the fact that the structure is improving, and it's a game changer for depression and a lot of these issues that are all being limited. Your health is limited to the structure, and nobody was talking about it out there. So I'm like, oh my God, I gotta be a light for people to tell them that they can change and improve, because I had such a hardship when I was about 12, 13 years ago.
Okay. Wow. Okay, I love this, because I think that holds a whole new level of hope, right? For being able to address mental and physical health. If literally what's happening structurally isn't allowing these very important aspects of your brain and your nervous system to thrive, right? To calm down, to heal. And then notwithstanding, of course, like we can't completely step out of our lives and away from technology, but it's more than that. There's a structural component that could absolutely be impacting people's health, and is, because gosh, I look around all the time from someone who had unbelievable neck pain, which I've had pain in 12 areas of my body, and I will say neck is one of the worst, because you realize really quickly that to do about everything in life, you have to look down or sideways, to eat, to write. Like I couldn't even look at my daughter because she was shorter than me, obviously, and suddenly it was just torture. And then for your neck to hold your head up, I was all of a sudden very conscious of how heavy my head was, which then made me aware of the pressure on our neck to sustain this head, especially forward all the time, and how that reverberates back down the entire spine. And so now I'm always watching people. It's like, once you see it, you can't see it. My reticular activating system is so aware. And the forward head posture is a huge issue we're facing today. And so we're not getting rid of cell phones. And of course we can monitor that, but you're saying we can help remold, restructure, and heal while we sleep, which is awesome. So there we've talked about how the structure impacts vagus nerve, the structure impacts your ability to think, your brain to be able to activate the parasympathetic through the vagus nerve to the body. What about one other aspect that I want to talk about is overall health, metabolism, because I know so many people, and everyone's, we've all heard, if you don't sleep, it's going to slow down your metabolism, right? And that stresses people out, because then if they're not sleeping, now they're stressing more about it. There's more cortisol being released. It's a vicious cycle, right? But talk to us about, again, it's not just the hours of sleep, but how you're sleeping impacting, again, that metabolism also for people, because I know that's a huge issue as people age, right? And sometimes they feel like I'm doing all the things, and yet because of my sleep, I'll hear people say that too, right? I can't lose the weight, or how am I supposed to lose the weight? So talk to that for a second, because I know that's a big issue for people alongside, the anxiety and depression and so forth.
Well, that's a great point. So, there are so many aspects and variables to that question, so I'll try to limit the rabbit hole that we go down. But really, ultimately, in order to have a healthy, functioning system, you need to have a balanced system, right? Balance between the sympathetics and the parasympathetics. When you're sympathetically stimulated, or you have a high sympathetic tone, at night you need to be opposite. You need to offset that with high parasympathetic tone. So you can live. I'm a nut job. So I woke up this morning, I went to the gym. I'm gonna, I then saw, 50 people this morning. I come home, I eat real quick. I'm on a podcast. Then once I'm done, I'm going to take a little nap today because I just got back from Europe, and then I'm gonna mountain bike tonight for 4 hours and then come home. So that's like that sympathetic tone, yeah, at its max. The only parasympathetic I get in there is my downtime, just because of that nap, just because I need it from this weekend. So, can you live sympathetic dominant and then be parasympathetic dominant at night? And the question is, yes, you have to have that balance. But that balance comes from a few different things. First, it comes from learning how, all sleep isn't created equal. Like falling asleep at 9 o'clock and then waking up at, let's say, 6 o'clock. If you do that with sleeping pills versus doing that naturally, and you do that every single night, that's going to be a very different result, because you're not going to go through, when you take a sleeping pill, yes, you get crashed out, but you don't go through the normal sleep cycles. And going through the normal sleep cycles is critical to be able to become parasympathetic dominant at night. So, if we're looking at metabolism, and we want to speed up a metabolism, you do that a few different ways. First, believe it or not, you do it by getting more sleep. Because the more sleep you get and the more rested you are, the more the body is going to be able to give the next day, and your metabolism will start to speed up. If you're fatigued and you're tired and you're run down, certain hormones increase, like leptin, and I don't like to throw out these fancy words and terms and insulin and all that, all those things, but really in general, when you're fatigued, you become something that's called, forget it, I'm not even going to use that term. You want to eat more, you become hungrier, you become insulin resistant, so you have more insulin that rides in your body, your sugar levels stay higher, and it makes you pack on weight because you're living at this extreme level. So if we can change the way we sleep. We can create a very protected environment, and then over a period of time restructure our curve, which was going to increase our tone, and then we just work on improving the balance. You'll see your metabolism speed up and your weight will drop.
Awesome. Amazing. Okay, we could talk for so long, and I'm going to, of course, reference everyone to go and watch more and listen more. This is, in all honesty, this is so fascinating to me because one of the greatest quests of my life has not only been for my health, but to sleep. Like, I remember my husband will knock out, and because of what happened to me for 4 years when I was younger, and then all the chronic pain, sleep was like such a stressor, because instead of being like, oh, I'm so excited to go to sleep, it was like, I hope I sleep tonight, and for years I didn't, just because, again, the pain and not wanting to be putting so many really strong painkillers in my body all the time. I was just kind of at the mercy of not sleeping a lot, because it was like choose your poison. And so I'm so grateful now to be on the other side of that, and for my nervous system to feel that it can sleep. And it's been a long journey, but I truly believe, and everything that I've learned from you today, and even just the structural impact on the vagus nerve, I need to get back to sleeping on my back, because I will tell you, I can feel it. I can feel it at the base of my head. And from someone who's had a long journey to heal my neck, I feel like I'm putting it at a vulnerable place, because I really feel how I'm sleeping. And I'm very attuned with my body from everything that I've gone through, which is a gift. And I've had to kind of address that hypervigilance in my brain to want to be aware of every symptom happening. But I can feel it when I wake up. I can feel it at the base of my neck. I can feel that it's not serving me. And then if you notice in our interview, I kept kind of shooting back because I want to engage. And so when I'm doing podcasts or I'm coaching my clients, I forward head and I lean forward and I put my head forward, and I'm trying to be conscious of that. But I also want to utilize the time where I'm sleeping to remold and to restructure and to heal. So tell me about what you offer. You have a sleep protocol and you have a pillow. And so tell me about that, because what you just said, I'm someone whose neck, and again, we talked before we got on here, I whiplashed it purposefully, right? For years in my career. And now when I watch Latin ballroom dancing, I hurt, because I'm like, what are we doing to our neck? Like whipping it around. But when I've had instances where I've had to extend my neck back, like when I was at the height of my health issues with my pain, I had thyroid issues, of course, that dug up. And to do a biopsy on my thyroid, they had to put me in that extended neck position, right? My neck recoiled. It was so mad. And I know it's because it's not used to being in that position. But that was only for maybe 20, 30 minutes, right? While they were doing the biopsy. And I'm not at that same reactive place, but there's a lot of people with neck issues, right? And that can be a really kind of reactive, volatile place. How do we start and work with the body, the neck, the structure, the nervous system to get to a place where, we can sleep all night, on our back in that position, so our body can restructure?
That's a great question. And with you, I'll talk personally for you, because I think it's better that, so let's say I'm coaching you. So in order to have a thyroid issue, any thyroid issue, whether you get to a point or a biopsy or you have, low energy, there's a thyroid issue. You have an issue at C5 and C6, which is the direct innervation to the thyroid. You've whiplashed. When you whiplash damages C5, C6, because that's where the most amount of flexion extension comes from in the cervical spine. So anybody that has a thyroid issue, if you take an x-ray, you're going to have damage at C5 and C6. So when you try to start to put that damaged area into extension, it's not going to like it. So it's like stretching a hamstring that's been pulled. It doesn't like to stretch out. That doesn't mean you don't want to stretch it out. It just means that you can't do it for a long period of time. So in order to start, the only thing you need to do is start with a habit, because habits are, so your body, your health is really a product of your daily rituals.
Absolutely.
What you do on a daily basis to find your health and well-being. And those rituals are driven by your belief system. So ultimately, your beliefs if you're not happy with your health, you got to change your stinking thinking, because it's between your ears. Anyway, so if we can now understand that tissue can remold, just the more damaged that tissue is, it takes a little bit longer. Instead of hard clay, you want soft clay. That's where chiropractic care works. It takes hard clay, and it dips it in water, makes it more moldable, but you still need to expose it to a different molds. And that is where the pillow defined as a support for your head. Every pillow on the planet should be thrown out. Why? Or used differently. Because you don't want to support the head. Because when you support the head, you lose the structure of the cervical spine. Even all of these cervical pillows, the cervical pillows, they support the neck and support the head. If you support the head, you drop the curve. So, what you want to do is you want to use distraction. I was just in Europe. I left. We did a cruise, and we did some things, and I traveled to one hotel. And I usually travel with my neck nest, but I wasn't. It was 100 degrees, and I said, when I get to this house, this Airbnb, I'm gonna figure it out. So I rolled up a towel, and I created this little area, and I put myself into a position where I put something under my neck, and then I let my neck arch off the back of it. And I knew, because I've done this for the last 10 years, that if I could fall asleep in that position, and my body won't toss and turn, because that's a sustainable position. So with most people, when they start out, when I show you the position to put yourself in, you'll only be able to be in this position for an hour a night, and then your body's going to turn. Don't worry about it. 1 hour a night is the commitment to put yourself into the position I'm about to show you right now. Now, I just happen to create a neck nest which helps you put into that position. You can use a pillow on its edge, soft down pillows underneath your neck. I used a towel when I was in Italy, but you want to create something that does something similar to what I'm going to show you. Understand that it's going to take a long period of time for your body to get used to it, so just do 1 hour a night. And then in our programs, we show you how there are different things that come up, and we show you how to overset, kind of overdo these boundaries or come across these things. But I'm gonna. Can you see that neck nest there?
Yeah.
All right. What I'm gonna do right here is I'm going to put myself in the position that I did when I was at Italy. I don't typically sleep flat every night. I like to sleep at a slight angle. So I took one pillow and I put it at the top of the bed. I took another pillow and I just put it like this. See how I have two pillows right there? And then I took the towel, I'm going to use a neck nest right now, and I put it on the back pillow. So in a sense, what that's doing, that's creating a slightly elevated position. Because if the bed's too hard, it's going to be difficult for you to get used to this. So I recommend, if you're a side sleeper and you're going to try to do this for your back for 1 hour, do this slight elevation. It will help. Not everybody needs it, but it's a good way to get over that. And then the neck nest specifically is designed to go on its edge. It's not designed to be flat like it looks. It's designed to go on its edge. Because you want the weight of the head not to be supported. So most people use it, a lot of people use it like this, and they put the head on the back, because like all those social media pillows that you see, the head is always supported. You want to use the head as a weight distracted, like a slinky off the back. So we use the neck nest like this. I lie back, I take it, and then I take this roll and I put it under my neck. Now the weight of my head is off the back of the neck nest, about 1 inch off of the pillow in the back, and that is the position I put myself in. Oh, okay. So nice. So,
you're ready for your nap now.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I might just shut this off and start right now. But this is a position that is sustainable. my body is in a perfectly neutral position. So if I fall asleep like that, it's not going to toss and turn once my body gets used to it, because it's not going to be in pain. And then if you can put yourself in a position that molds over an 8-hour period of time, you're going to transform the health of not just your spine, but at the beginning, the health of your nervous system, and improve your overall structure while you sleep, and improve your health while you sleep.
Amazing. Okay, I'm gonna give it a go. Maybe we'll have you come back after. I just absolutely know, and with again our same beliefs, that the brain commands everything, and it does it through the nervous system. If I can utilize my sleep to better help my nervous system, then I'm 1,000,000,000% in.
That's great.
So, where do people find you? You have this program, because I do know everyone's like, well, what about me? You know, because we all have our different experiences or different injuries. And I know from someone with my neck history, there's some fear attached to that, right? Because people don't want to make it worse or aggravate it. And I think so that's where I have no doubt you have that support through your programs to help people. And may I emphasize, 1 hour a night, people think, well, what will that matter? Right? I always tell my clients, it's those small progressive that eventually then compound to the biggest changes. So 1 hour, think about that, even over a week, that might be 7 hours.
7 hours, yeah.
Right? Of your spine in the right position that otherwise it's getting zero of. So it all matters. So where do they find you? Where do they go? The pillow, the programs. So
if they want to find out about the neck nest, it's necknest.com, necknest.com. We have free online communities where they can join, and they can become a member of our sleep community. And then if they want to follow me and get more information and just kind of sit in the background and they love the vibe, I mean, some of my stuff I put out there is nuts. I was sleeping in the middle of an airport, so we did this whole thing where I can fall asleep anywhere. When I was in the airport, there's thousands of people. I just lie down in a neck nest, and they're like following me around. Where's Dr. Sleep Right? I'm sleeping in front of all these people. They thought it was nuts. So
that's a superpower. I got to get there.
So it was on Instagram it's Dr. Sleep Right, and then on Facebook I think it's Dr. Sleep Right. And so that's kind of my acronym. They can follow us there.
Okay, I'll put the links in the show notes as well. So the neck nest, I imagine the sleep programs and protocols are
all on there.
That.
So
they're all on there.
We're going to be right now. It's called the Corrective Sleep Program. The Corrective Sleep Program is a series of 30 videos, and that they get one video a day for 30 days. You don't have to go through them all, but it teaches you stuff about how to use your covers, how to sleep with a spouse, what foods to eat, what foods to stay away from, what the most important tips are to be able to fall asleep, stay asleep, wake up well rested. You know, you can't think yourself to sleep. You got to remember yourself to sleep, and the stuff about how to use scents and things like that. There's a lot in there, so we're going to be changing it. We're going to be changing it to drip educate it a little bit over a period of time so people can sustain it a little bit longer. But they can find out all that information at necknest.com.
Okay, amazing. I just think I'm so excited even to go to this next level, even with sharing with my clients and my audience, because I really do think it could be the missing key for a lot of people, right? Even to get to that next place of your health, if your structure, as clearly mine still is, inhibiting the full activation of that vagus nerve, which we want. And, you know, at the same time, like the body's amazing. I'm definitely a living witness of that. You are, my clients are, but I know there's been a structural impact that I'm still working to get back, you know, and if I can help do that while I sleep, goodness, sign me up for that. Okay. So thank you so much for turning your, you know, that pain, that breakdown moment into purpose, you know, and therefore taking what you did for you to help others, because there are these components. And I certainly know if there's a structural piece you could do all the other things and yet you still have this inhibition happening. And this really could be one of those key roots, that allow you to heal mentally, physically, emotionally. So if I can heal all the more while I sleep, goodness gracious, right? So one last question, and we've kind of touched on it, but my motto for my life has been, you're not what happens to you, you're who you choose to become, right? So what does that mean for you and in this work?
Yeah, wow, that's awesome, because one of my mottos is be the change you want to see in this world. So, everybody thinks, oh yeah, it'll happen to me, it'll happen to me, it'll happen to me. Everything comes from purpose, right? Everything comes from within inside. So you've been put on this world for a reason. You've been given the gift of healing. You've been given the gift of health. You've been, given the gift of be able to do whatever you want. You just need to kind of get inside of yourself and figure out, what is my impact on humanity? Is it to raise a healthy family? Is it to have healthy kids? Is it to just be a good person? Is it to make other people smile? But tap into your why, and then be a bright light and be the change you want to see in this world. So that's what it means to me.
I love it. And I can say, when you do that, no matter what's going on in your life, you can wake up with purpose and excitement for life. And doing so helps you to get to the other side of what you're going through. Thank you so much for what you shared today. I'm excited for my audience to hear this from you. I'm excited for myself, just guys, from a total selfish reason. I was like, this is for me also. Fantastic. So everybody, again, thank you for joining us. And until next time, remember, you're not what happens to you. You're who you choose to become. Thank you. If you're enjoying this podcast and have questions about where you're feeling stuck in your life or about bioemotional healing coaching, I want to encourage you to come to my free monthly coaching call. It's called Ask Ashley. I will spend time answering questions, coaching you, and teaching concepts. You'll get a better understanding of what I do and how bioemotional healing can help you rewire your brain. My goal is that every time you listen to this podcast or come to this free monthly coaching call, you'll leave with a greater understanding of how your brain works and feel empowered to make changes in your life. To sign up for that call, go to ashleydelello.com/askashley. Thanks again for joining me today. Remember to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app. And as always, thank you for sharing the Bioemotional Healing podcast with your friends.